Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the Mary Moo Show, and for the next hour, I'm going to be with you as I'm here every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. I hope you're feeling good wherever you are. And everything is going to kick off as per usual. We're going to listen to some great music as per usual. We're going to have some good chit-chat as per usual. And I'm going to have a good conversation with one of my guests as per usual. So let's get straight in. Okay, so I'm going to be playing a new track from Faith Child. It is called Cardio. Running away from God doesn't have to be cardio. He's back with a blast, guys. He really has come back with a really strong message and a good track. So I'm going to listen to that. And I'm going to play Anatolia and Stay With Me because, again, the message and the song is just so beautiful. So we're going to listen to that. And then we're going to be right back. So stick around and I will see you soon.
Sometimes when I live righteously and holy, why do I have to go astray? Forever want your eyes on me. Mwari, inindo funga kuti, natata papi. It's all me, I know. The evidence all around me, you are here. Will test my faith, inhibiting purpose. I tripped up on too many times. When I fall, moon on T, I'll rise again. It's all me, I know. The evidence all around me, you are near, I know.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Mary Moo, and this is the Mary Moo Show. I am here every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. We've been listening to cardio. I tried to say that all in one breath. I need to work on my cardio. Anyway, that was Faith Child with Cardio. I hope you enjoyed that track. And we also listened to Anatolia with Stay With Me. Now, talking about Anatolia, actually, she is touring. So she's joining forces with Still Shady, who I play a lot of his songs on this radio show, and also with Asha Aaliyah, and the trio are touring the UK. So get your pens out or get your writing devices out. How you want to take down this information, I'm going to drop it to you. This is the Lifted Tour, and they're kicking things off in London, May the 16th, at Brixton Jam. Then on the 18th, they're going over to Bristol at the Loco Club. And then on the 19th, Manchester with Canvas. They're going to be in Canvas. And May the 21st, anything's in Birmingham at Mary Moo. So please go onto the DICE website to book a ticket for the Lifted Tour. You get to hear more from Anatoria and Still Shady and Asha Elia. Good. So I like attending events, I like events that inspire me, events that I can be inspired by and just generally have a really good time. And this is the second time I've been to the Gas Street Business networking event. The first time I went was when I came here and started to live in Birmingham. It's just 2019, and we were honestly blown away. And if you follow me on social media, you know how much I talked about it. Not just the sandwiches, not just the breakfast. And shout out to the Early Bird Bakery in Birmingham up here. Beautiful food, but not just because of that. We really did gain things that we've used throughout our business, but also shared that information around. We learned so much about Birmingham and how, such a hold was put on it for 70 plus years because of, jealous neighbouring cities, and how that's now been lifted and the city is allowed now to flourish, and just other things that helped shaped my business that I have, Hope Valley Wellbeing. So obviously when word came out that they had another one that was on this Saturday past, I signed up in a hurry because I knew I was going to listen to very inspirational content, learn something, network with great people, but in this faith-based way that is just so soothing and just so inspiring at the same time. Trust me, I've been to other networking events before and they're just so money driven and so money hungry that I just want to flee. And that's why I don't go to a lot of them, because I just don't want to be just pumped with money all the time. And that's why I really wanted to get my next guest on, because I was like, he just gets it. He just gets it. This is somebody who's created a business out of helping people. It can happen. We can create businesses from helping people. And that might seem very, you always should know that. But actually, some people actually don't. And I teach a lot about that. You can create businesses or create products that people need or people want, or both. But when you create something people need, it is very, very life-changing. So let's listen to some music, and then we're going to come back and go straight into the interview. Please stick around for that. It is worth it. It is so worth it. We're going to be talking a bit about what we learned on Saturday and what I gained. But let's start off with some music. We're going to listen to Cortez with Distance. I love that one. And this new one I haven't heard before. It's a brand new one from Matthew Parker and Jacob from Stanford with Bird's Eye View. So let's roll with those, and we'll be right back for the interview.
You told me hit the road, you said I gotta go. Sent your song for the souls, and I gotta let them know. Enemy coming like wolves, and I gotta stay woke. But I ain't never gotta fear, cause same power that rose lives in my soul, yeah. If you send me, then I'll run the distance. All I pray is you give me your wisdom. I'm ready to lay down my life. I know that you'll be by my side. I don't really know, but I know I gotta go. And yeah, he really rolls, can't keep that on the low. Yeah, and it's gotta show, barefoot I gotta load. It's the only way to grow, but I know I'm not alone. Yeah. Draw me to yourself, I got no one else. Yeah, and that's okay, cause I'll give all my love. Yeah, and where you send me, I will go, cause I got nowhere else to go. If you send me, then I'll run the distance. All I pray is you give me your wisdom. I'm ready to lay down my life. I know that you'll be by my side. If you send me, then I'll run the distance. If you send me, yeah. If you send me, yeah. If you send me, then I'll run. If you send me, then I'll run. I'll run. Yeah, I'll run. Since you sent me, yeah, I'll run. Yeah, I'll run. I got nowhere else to go, but if you send me, I'll go. If you send me, then I'll run the distance. All I pray is you give me your wisdom. I'm ready to lay down my life. I know that you'll be by my side. If you send me, then I'll run the distance. All I pray is you give me your wisdom. I'm ready to lay down my life. I know that you'll be by my side.
Hi, everybody. So we are back, and I have been talking about my special guest, haven't I? And this is the moment where we really get to have a conversation with him. We've been talking about helping people through business. You don't always have to produce a product that people want, something so like a brand or something. You can actually create something that people really need and touch lives and have a business that way. And I'm here with a special guest that I met just this Saturday gone. And as I said, at the Gas Street Business networking event, which I loved, and he was one of the panel members on there, sharing his story and his testimony about how he founded the Joy app, which is a social prescribing software. Patrick Harding, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. That's Joy. Yeah, we're a social prescribing app, and everyone is wondering what on earth is that, and has no idea what such an app would be.
Yes. Enlightening us, tell us, and welcome. But first of all, welcome to the Mary Moo Show. For those of you who know, I'm here every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m, and we have here Patrick Harding, and he's going to explain to us just the background of what Joy is, what the Joy app is, and we're going to get going with some questions. So tell us, what exactly is the Joy app?
What is it? So, big picture, we're a health app. We're a health tech company. We're a health tech app, and the big picture is that a lot of our health, in fact, 80% of our health, 80% of our health is determined by non-medical factors. So not about molecules or even genetics. 80% of our health is determined by non-medical factors such as your lifestyle, and also your social and socio-economic conditions. So I'll give you some EGs because that's quite high level. For example, at your activity, your sleep, your mental health, your social circumstances, your housing situation, your financial situation, these factors really have a huge driving factor on your health. So if you consider things like mental health or obesity or cardiovascular disease or even cancer, a lot of these diseases or problems, the root cause can be traced back to a non-medical factor. And if you have a chronic health condition and your non-medical factors or your lifestyle factors aren't in a great place, then your chronic and your long-term health condition can be amplified, like the negative impacts can be amplified. So that's the big picture for it. What Joy is, it's the prescription without the pill. So we're a technology company, so we provide a software tool which can be used by staff such as GPs or other clinicians in the NHS to prescribe a person into a local non-clinical intervention that's going to help them. So for example, maybe you want to lose some weight, you might be referred into a local weight management group. Maybe you want to stop smoking, you can be referred into a local stop smoking program. And that is what is known as a social prescription. So when you get a prescription from the GP, for example, which is not really a pill that you take, but more an intervention that's going to change your lifestyle or really help you with some, help you to address some of the social circumstances that you might find yourself in.
Wonderful. And I'm sure, like myself,
I know people who have needed non-medical intervention or advice or alternatives. They started off with one thing. So if somebody I know, for example, was diagnosed, I don't know if that's the correct word, but has high blood pressure. And many years ago, they were put straight on all these pills, a load of pills. This day, her GP told her that if she had come in with that level of high blood pressure, whatever it was, they would never have prescribed her with all those drugs and things. They would have given her these alternative things to do with weight loss, changing your diet, all these alternatives. So now, unfortunately, she seems to be almost stuck on these pills, which thankfully times have changed, and you do have these alternatives that you can now, alternative measures you can now go to address. But for those people who if he wasn't around when they needed it, they're stuck on all these pills. But I think it's great as an alternative, these non-medical local solutions to deal with things like diabetes and things like that. So we are so thankful for the Joy app. I'm sure many communities and who use it, for GPs and so forth, I'm guessing that they're thrilled. I mean, how many GPs and patients do you currently have using the Joy app?
Yeah, so we're about 3.5 years old as a organization. So I started it in September 2019. We've grown quite quickly, actually, which is incredibly exciting. So we now cover 1,000 GP surgeries. It's around 10 million patients across England. And yeah, we're growing really quickly as well. And it's just amazing to see it being used. And, if you like start something or a new initiative or whatever, particularly this, which is for me like kind of missional, like this is it's unbelievable to see that all unfolding before your eyes. So yeah, we cover that many. Not all 10 million patients will need some support. It's certainly not the case that everybody needs to be socially prescribed the service, but we see around 2% per year will be referred. So it's about 200,000 patients currently with the 10 million that we have, but we're growing and expanding all the time. So yeah, and I'm really hoping to see that number increase quite a lot more.
So am I. It's fantastic. And I was wondering, so obviously I did listen to your story when you was at Gas Street, and you talked about how you got here. And we're going to scroll back a little bit. When you were a child and when you was a teenager, did you ever think you'll be doing something like this? Obviously, a creator of this kind of app. What did Patrick want to do when he was like a child, and also a teenager? What did you want to do?
Yeah, like I really enjoy starting companies and building businesses. I'm not even joking. When I was 16, I started my first company. So wow. I feel like it was been like, I'm someone I think I'm quite proactive, and I love just like making things happen. So when I was 16, I went to college to do my A-levels, and I had to do this sports leadership course. Well, I signed up for it, but it was like an extracurricular activity or course that you had to do. And they said you had to coach 12 hours. And I was like, do you know what? Like, if I'm going to do this, can I try and get paid? And so I tried to like apply to like, I wanted to do, like football was quite a big thing for me. So I wanted to, so I like put my CV in and no one got back to me. So I was like, sod this. I'm going to start my own like football coaching company and do it in after school and primary schools. And that's what happened. Like I started my first company when I was 16, and I'd say it was so successful. It was even like compared to like I feel like impact, like instant impact. It was massive. We had about 60 children per week, like coming to our little school. And when you were 16, that was like they were paying maybe £2 each a go, and that was my first company. I was like, honestly, compared to like most 16-year-olds, I was like, yeah, this is the best part-time job you could like have. Most of my friends were like waiting tables and like doing paper rounds and things. I was like, no, this is like, this is good. That was my first company I started. I really love, for me, and I think it's a kind of a creative endeavor where you actually think of something and then you just make it happen, and it happens, and then it's there. And you're like, wow, what a sense of achievement, and how fun is that? And I love doing that sort of thing. And I think entrepreneurship is just one creative outlet I think that people can have. And for me, I think it's probably the one, like, I'm a horrendous musician, horrible, even worse dancer. Like, I can't get it out the more traditional creative ways, but this is something you can, think something and then pragmatically make it happen, and you get it out of your system, and it just feels terrific.
Wow. I wanted to hear that, because sometimes you can see in people's journey when they become successful how, as a child, there's been steps of that, traces of it, and then taking over the paper round or doing something like that, and you always sometimes see like a little trail, a little trickle of where they end up. So when you obviously started working and you became an adult, was the joy at the obviously, how do I put it, the foundations of that, was that something you were thinking about as you went into the world of adulting and work? Is it, or when did the seeds of Joy app, when were they planted and started to?
Yeah, I think it goes back to something where I feel like I'm kind of made that way. So I feel like I was created to be the sort of person who makes things happen. And when I started working, so I went to university, and then I got a graduate job, wearing a suit. And do you know what? Like, I always felt like a little bit out of place, like a little bit of a misfit. And I kind of yearned and like hungered for the ability to sort of do things my way. I think there's a little bit of rebellion in me, and sometimes someone will say you should do X, and I'll be like, but why? Like, why are we doing everything this way? I'm quite like a sort of inquisitive person.
Curious,
Really, yeah, exactly. And I felt there's quite a lot of dissatisfaction, I suppose, with like that professional career. And it kind of coincided with what, I feel like I was made, like, as a human being. Like, I feel like our purpose really is to leave the planet in a better place than we find it, and to like help other people. Like, I think that's the most important thing. And in a lot of jobs, it's really hard to find a job where you actually really get to help people. Like, you have to be quite intentional, I think, about that. And so in my professional job, I was getting exposed to all of these like sectors which were like really innovative and like using tech and doing all these sorts of fascinating and exciting things, but they weren't helping people. And so, like, for me, it was like, how could we harness some of the innovation and some of the tech that I'm seeing in like working for big corporate companies, like, blue chip companies or whatever? How can we leverage that to take on and address like some of the big issues like facing society that are really causing misery, preventing people from flourishing and thriving in their life? And so that was like my like starting point, or the way that I started to think about it, which was like, we want to use this tech, we want to use it for good, and we want to see people who are really marginalized and really vulnerable. We want to really go and chase after people in those circumstances, and can we help build like a redemptive business that really helps those sorts of people? And that was really like the genesis, I suppose, of framing the way I even started thinking about it. And then once you start getting on a journey, that was like step one. And then how you actually do that, there's so many different ways. And when I started testing different ideas out, that everything that we would change, so everything that we're doing would change, and has changed so much since we first started thinking about what it would be. So there were so many other like business ideas, I suppose, and solutions and things that I tried to maybe build, and it didn't work, and it failed, and then someone said that was rubbish, or someone said, no one was ever that explicit, but like it just didn't land that well. And then it took me maybe like a year and a half of just testing different ideas out, to then start finding the sort of solution space for like, it's got to be in GP surgeries, it's got to be a social prescription, it's got to be connecting into something that already sort of exists in the community, and making that pathway easier. Because there's loads of ways that you could help people, but this was the one which we sort of landed on, and got going with.
Yeah, because you did share, well, two things actually. First of all, in the business workshop, you did talk about the importance of testing the hypothesis, almost testing the assumptions, testing them to make sure it works. And it's okay if you fail, but if you do have a business idea, and for anyone who's listening who is thinking about starting a business, I'm not sure, to go ahead and test it. You taught us that, didn't you? You mentioned that. Yeah, to test that.
I think like the number one thing that I see amongst budding entrepreneurs is I actually see there's two things that they believe that are untrue. So the first thing that people believe is that it's really hard to get started. And then the second thing that people believe is once you've got started and you've actually got something, it'll be quite easy to scale it. and it's definitely not true. Like, it's so much easier to get started than people actually imagine. But what you need to do is you need to row back what you think that first step looks like. So for Joy, the first step was just creating like a one-page website, a very short, maybe 5 or 6 slides around talking about the problem that we were solving and how it would work. And that was enough for me to get going. And that was all I needed. So I didn't actually need to like have thousands of lines of code and the app you could log into and whatever. It was much more a document and a telling people about the problem I was going to solve and how I envisaged it working. That was enough for me to get going on the first part of the journey, which was just testing ideas. And what's really cool is if someone tells you that your idea isn't very good, and if you find out before you've actually spent any money on building it, then you've saved yourself so much heartache, and you save yourself money and time and wasted effort. So it's almost like a game that I think budding entrepreneurs should play, which is the game is, how far can I take this before I need to like spend proper money, like investing in this? So how far can I get someone on the brink of like signing up to downloading this platform or signing a contract to use the service that you're providing? Like, how far can you go before people are willing?
They want it,
yeah. And then what happens is when you think of it as a game in that way, is you realize that a lot of the initial ideas and assumptions that you had were a bit wrong. So they could be wildly wrong, and that with Joy, honestly, early days it was wildly wrong, but then we got a bit closer to landing on what it actually needed to be, and as we got closer and closer and closer and closer, we our customers, or we basically built up like a sales pipeline. So people were like, oh yeah, when this is ready, we really want it. And then when you get to that sort of level of I suppose confidence in what you're going to be doing, then it really makes everything else like a lot more straightforward and simple, because you have certainty in something that can be quite an uncertain area.
I think that is really cool. That's one of the main things I wrote down, and I'm so glad we're able to expand on that and tell people like you don't have to have it all figured out. And I've been involved in some investment processes before, and a lot of them operate the same way, where they would have like a page, give people samples out of a book or whatever it is, get sign up, and then at the point when they know that they've got it's sufficient to go ahead and invest in that, then they'll be like, right, we're ready to go to the next phase, which is to actually fully build this thing out. So it might, that can help people who don't have the money to go ahead and do that. Because I remember you even mentioned that you didn't even know how to build an app, because you didn't come from that background. You said was it defense? You said you worked in before, something like that, or
I did strategy consulting, but like my last project I was working on before going into Joy, I spent a long time working on a predictive maintenance business for submarines in like, defense. So it was like really random compared to health and unrelated actually. But I didn't know what I was really doing in the early stages, but what I did know was that if I make the first move, put down a point of view, say this is how I think it's going to work, and then put in a lot of effort to try and speak to people who were the experts, who are the customers really, and get them to tell me whether they think this is a good idea or not a good idea, and how I could make it better and whatnot, then all I need to be is almost like a sponge and just like listen to what they're telling me, reflect on it, and then do like a version 2, and then a version 3, and a version 4, and then you do that a lot of times, and you find that you start honing in on something that's really valuable and that people will properly value. So yeah, that's my big tip for any budding entrepreneur, is just get going and start testing your ideas and speaking to your potential customers and showing them what you want to build for them, and would that be helpful, and would they pay for it. And you'll be amazed to hear what feedback you get, and often it'll be like, no, I wouldn't pay for that. And then you go, oh, gutting.
You know them rather than spending money, which is really cool. I want to take you back to another part of your story that you talked about before I go forward, but I need to go. You talked about having sort of almost like a first-hand experience of somebody who needed what you have produced and made, the Joy app. And this was like you with your mother, and the story about how you looked at obviously how you grew up and stuff, because it's very easy to assume things about your life, looking at you now successful, thinking, oh, he had it all, everything was all wonderful, he came from a wealthy home, and he must have been that way. But actually what was really humbling and really touching was that part of the story that you shared that helped inform what you did. So would you be okay with speaking about that again? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So yeah, I think I grew up in, like, I'd say it's quite difficult circumstances. And I grew up so I'm an only child. My mum's a single parent, and she's got like long-term health conditions as well. She's disabled. And I really saw firsthand how a person's physical health and mental health is a big old mix of circumstances around like work and finances and friendships and connection into the community and these sorts of things. So my story really is one of being like the main person to look after my mum, or with her sort of leaving her work because of her disability, and then seeing like the rapid decline in her physical health and mental health as a result of leaving in employment, and then ending up in her home, all by herself, lonely and isolated, nothing to give her a joy in life, nothing to bring her any pleasure at all, just turning to food as like the pleasure, putting on weight, bills mounting up throughout, more increasingly intimidating bills mounting up, and like arrears and bailiffs at the door, and these sorts of circumstances. And you just see the blows that it takes out on my mum. And this sort of coinciding with more and more trips to the doctors, more and more trips to the hospital. She had like one of those, they call it a Dosset box. It's a pill box filled with tablets to wake her up, tablets to send her to sleep, tablets for the pain, tablets for the mental health. Like all of these things are stacking up. And yet the daily pattern is just one of like complete emptiness, fear, worrying that you're going to be evicted out of your home any moment. And it just becomes quite a dangerous, rapid downward spiral of health. And it becomes one of those situations where your biological age starts massively outracing your chronological age. So you're aging, like a year at a time, but actually you're aging like 5-6 years at a time, just because of the circumstances. And then seeing how really what that person needed isn't more pills or more appointments. Actually what they need is someone to come alongside her, help her navigate, the welfare system, and like things like housing benefit and whatnot, get the finances in place, getting plugged into a program where you're going to lose weight with other people and like have someone to look forward to, and volunteering. These sorts of things, they transform health, they transform it. But it's almost so blindingly obvious, but also so non-clinical, that the health system, this is like 15 years ago, this was really happening. The health system didn't have such a mature approach to like helping people like that with those sorts of problems. It was much more treating the presenting issue rather than tackling the root cause issue behind that person's circumstances.
Yeah.
And what's great is that little things, and also in the grand scheme of, how much money is spent on appointments and medicine, relatively cheap interventions like just going to Swimming World or volunteering, these things make a big difference.
Yeah.
And that was like, for me, that shone a light on the opportunity to help treat health in this way, particularly in our sort of modern society where issues of mental health have never been as high as they've ever been now.
Wow.
Issues of isolation and loneliness, these issues are much greater than they've ever been throughout like history. Now, particularly in like the UK or other most developed countries, like mental health and isolation and loneliness and these sorts of problems and lifestyles as well are so much more responsible for health, and there's not really any focus on them.
It's so surprising that there isn't, but thank God for apps like yours that help steer things down the right path. And like I said, I feel sorry for those people who years ago were prescribed things that they're stuck on now for life because there just wasn't these alternatives. I'm going to talk a bit more about obviously you're getting your first your investment, your first opportunity, things like that before we wrap things up. So we're going to have a quick break. We're going to listen to Gyro, the remix of Gyro by Limo Blaze, Lecrae and Happy, and then we're going to be right back and we're going to be talking to Patrick Harding on the Joy app. So let's take a break and listen to Gyro. Be right back. Gyro, you are enough. My name is Mary Moo and this is the Mary Moo Show. I'm here every Thursday 7 to 8 p.m. On Ruach Radio, right here on Ruach Radio. And today I've been talking to Patrick, who I met on Saturday gone at the Gash Street Business Networking event. And we've been talking about, his story with creating the Joy app and almost reinforcing that, helping people is great and can lead to a very good entrepreneurial journey in this space of trying to help people. So we're going to get cracking with my last little round of questions. And I like this one because it's a testimony really of how he got his first sale. Because we all know when you in business and things like that, getting a sale or getting investment or anything can be a bit of a challenge. And I really, really loved his story. So Patrick, are you able to share with us the story of how you got your first sale, investment, client? Go for it.
Definitely. And the story really of Joy is just a story of like God partnering with me and like choosing to partner with me, or me like begging God really to be his like partner in a business. And really starting like this sort of business, one of the key things you do is you just hang out with God and you're praying into your business and you're asking for the Holy Spirit to inspire you and give you business strategies and ideas and pictures for like how things might be different. And I've always wanted him to be in it, and I think the way that we got going for me was just like testimony really to like to God's faithfulness really in me, and the fact that he wanted to like get this thing off the ground. So essentially before starting Joy really in earnest, and when I say in earnest, I mean like quitting my job, going all in, I'd been spending quite a lot of time talking about what I wanted to do. And that also included talking to the pastor at my church, who sensed that God was really inviting, or he had a prophetic sense that we as a church family, so the church I go to is in London, it's King's Cross Church, that King's Cross Church and the congregation, that we would be entering into an entrepreneurial season. And there's actually many entrepreneurs who've gone on to do like some such awesome things. And because of that, he wanted on our Vision Sunday just to like create a little bit of space for all the budding founders and budding entrepreneurs to discuss some of the problems they wanted to solve in the businesses they were starting. So I got basically a 30-second bit. Now, KXC, I don't know if anyone knows it, but we have long preaches. So we have like 50-minute, 50, the best part of an hour preach. And I had like 30 seconds, a minute or so, just to talk about what Joy was. Anyway, here's the miracle part. A guy who's never ever been to KXC, to our church, he'd never been there. He was driving from Surrey to Berkshire and he was listening to the KXC podcast, listened to the sermon about Vision Sunday, heard my 1 minute little bit about joy. He was driving to have a meeting in Reading in Berkshire, which got cancelled on the day. And unlike most regular people who, if their meeting was cancelled, would go home, he decided he would go on to Eventbrite to see what was happening in Reading, because Reading is a great place to be. And, you know, who knows what might happen. So he goes on Eventbrite and he sees that there's a tech meetup for entrepreneurs in Reading. And he's like, yeah, do you know what? That sounds really fun. I might as well go on to this. So he then rocks up to this tech meetup and hears about this competition to solve loneliness and isolation amongst older people in Berkshire, in this place called Wokingham. So he hears about this and he's like, oh, do you know what? That kind of rings a bell with what the guy in the KXC podcast was doing. And basically this competition gave you £100,000 plus access to some GP surgeries in Wokingham to get your idea or get to pilot this initiative that would actually address the loneliness and isolation that was affecting the older community in that part of the country. So he writes in, sends off a little email to the chap at KXC, who then passed it on to me and says, this looks relevant, you might want to apply to this. Anyway, I applied for this, and it was just one of those like hilarious sort of God funny moments, I suppose, where I had then like booked like kind of the trip of a lifetime to Cuba with one of my mates. And so I'm out in Cuba, and Cuba is kind of communist place. They don't really like allow people to go on the internet so easily. And if you have a phone call in Cuba, it's about £6 per minute to take a phone call. And my phone starts like going a bit mad and like having all these missed calls. And this is so strange. Like, why am I getting all these missed calls? And we end up going to this like hotel which has some Wi-Fi. And I get on the internet and I go, oh my gosh, I've got all these emails because we've been shortlisted for 2 days' time to go and present our idea. And this was like crazy. I was like, no way. This is like, it's in 2 days' time. I've just got to Cuba with my mate, like holiday of a lifetime. We're going to go and see this place. And so I was like, okay, right. Who can I get in to do this pitch for me? So I'm ringing around different people and they're like, absolutely not. I have no idea, you know. And so it just becomes the case. I was like, am I going to go home? Am I going to like cut this trip short? Like I've been here like a couple of days. Am I going to like end like a 2-week, 3-week holiday like properly early? Leave my mate out there just to take a punt? And I really prayed about it. I was like, you know what? Like I think this is going to happen. So I left my friend out there and got like to pay loads of money to get an airplane home, and text one of my friends. I said, look, I've got a pitch tomorrow. Could you put together some slides? Because I'm literally not going to get any chance to like put together the presentation. Anyway, he does that. I land, get home about 11 o'clock. Next morning, about 12, like in the afternoon, so I'll get down to Reading where this competition is, this pitch is happening. And anyway, pitched it and we won the 100 grand. And it was absolutely mad. My mate who I left out in Cuba starts taking Spanish lessons. He's now, he went and spent some time doing Spanish school in Cuba. He came back to England, kept up his Spanish. He's now married his Spanish teacher, who he was actually a Spanish speaking person. And it's all these sort of like life-changing events that's happened from this crazy little event. And that just kicked us off. And it was like, you know what, the favor of God, he was on something, and he had a bit of fun just like getting involved and making it all hectic and exciting. That's it.
I absolutely love that story. I really did, because it makes you know that we're ready at all times, whatever God's going to do, especially when you're praying about it and you're involving God in this. You're like, God, please move, please do something. I've got stories that, with my business, my own personal stuff, when I didn't know somebody was actually looking at our website, when I thought nobody did, but it was just that one person that helped us get onto another platform. So you just never know, especially when you're praying about it. And I like that you actually did. And let me tell you something, if you ever are on LinkedIn and you look at your Patrick, look at your profile, I like that you say you are faith-based, faith-led. Is it faith-led entrepreneur on there? This is real, you know. And even when I met him, everybody, I was telling him about obviously another funding we were going ahead for, and you really wanted to pray. Like, he's a real deal. He is the real deal in terms of his love for God, and how he believes God really can, you know, help with business. Don't leave him out of it. Don't make God seem like he can't. And like he said, you can have a bit of fun. You have such a great story to tell that's happened. Look how it all worked out. Your friends obviously married the Spanish teacher, and you won the, you know, the contract, and, you know, £100,000, and just the chance of somebody just listening in. And I think that's encouragement to people who are creatives, or churches who are out there putting out their sermons and giving space to budding entrepreneurs, as you say, that you never know what can happen. I mean, is your pastor really proud of you? I'm sure he must be.
Yeah. And like, do you know what's awesome is the person who listened to that podcast, so we're going back about 4 years ago. So yeah, going back about 4 years ago, just over, to when that all happened in that Vision Sunday. That guy, he's now moved to London to be part of that church now. And so I've now got to know him a little bit, the person who's involved in this miracle, and just I love like chatting to him about it, because from his point of view, I was just listening in and like sending an email, and amazing, just absolutely amazing. God, just it's almost like the more you pray, the more you give God like almost like surface area, if that makes sense. You give him more opportunities to like help you and interfere and do little miracles. Like he shows up with these things, and really whatever happens, it's like it's so encouraging. And I love hearing about like other times where God shows up for other entrepreneurs and does things, and you know, he's active, like he loves it.
He really is. And you know, one thing, Patrick, that I kind of walked away from, that God dropped in my spirit, it might not seem really relevant, but it does. There's a scripture, I think it's Elijah. It must be Elijah, because he's the one who moaned the most out of Elisha. and there's where God tells him, like, there's 70 others who haven't bowed their knees to Baal. Yes, it was Elijah, because I think Elijah was moaning about, like, almost like he was the only one out there. Yeah. And God was like, actually, no, there's 70 others or 70,000 others or something who haven't bowed their knees down to Baal. You know, there's more of us out there. And I think what I left that event knowing is that scripture dropped in my spirit. God said, look, there are many people out there who I've got in tech, in beauty, in all these different industries, who are representing me well and who are doing it the right way. And, you know, God's showing up in their lives through miracles. Like, be encouraged, Mary. Like, there are many like you out there. And I felt like I was in such a great place because of your message and what you said. And I thank you very much for being so, like, not running away when I approached you. When I said, would you come on the show? Thank you so much for being nice enough to listen and not sort of fleeing. I'm going, what's this guy?
Real pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope someone listening to this will be like, yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And pray about it. Just get going. And yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask. Yeah, he will. I was going to ask you what your last sort of parting words were for anybody who's really thinking of starting something. We've already told them, just do it. We've already told them now, like you said, you know, involve God in it. He does do miracles in the best way. I don't know. You talked about, obviously, you know, hopefully people get inspired, and that's what we want to do. Do you have any last words to share with the listeners? Yeah, tell us.
You know what? Like the theology I love thinking about is Moses. So basically, Moses, he's called by God. He's obviously he's like quite an old guy. He's murdered someone, and has that burning bush moment. And God's speaking to him. He's like, Moses, I want you to, you know, set the people free, lead the revolution out of Egypt. Moses he's a poor man. He's literally got like a staff in his hand for the shepherds. And what Moses says to God is like, what will I use? Like, how am I going to do this? And he goes, and God says to Moses, use what's in your hand. And what is in his hand is like a bit of wood, a rod. And when Moses is with Pharaoh, he throws his staff down. The staff turns into a snake, terrifies Pharaoh. when Moses gets to the Red Sea, he lifts up his staff to part the waters. When fast forward a little bit into the wilderness journey, he taps the rock because they're very thirsty. That turns into water. When they're battling, I think it's the Midianites, and they're losing the battle, he lifts his staff in the air and they start winning the war. So what does that teach us? It's like, the theology is like, just use what's in your hand. So get going, look at yourself now, go, what is in my hand? What do I currently have? We can focus about all the things we don't have to start a business. We don't have 100 grand, or we don't have this. You've got internet, probably. You've got a computer. You can make a Word document, or you can make some slides. You can make a one-page website for very little money, and you can get going. So just use what's in your hand to make some positive steps, and like bring God in, and He will help you to use what's in your hand to build something really cool and really fruitful.
So that was it. That's my interview with Patrick, all done and dusted. But I know what he's shared with us, it's not going to be done and dusted. We're going to take that up and we're going to do something with it. As he said, just make a start. Just start. Just start with what's in your hands. Because I really do know God's put things in our hands for a purpose, so we can start with. Even if it's just your voice, or even if it's something that you have access to, as he said, from emails to, internet, to all sorts of things. Everything you need is right there. So we're going to end with this track from Forrest Frank. He's a great artist, isn't he? Yeah. And this song is so fitting. It's called No Longer Bound. Listen to the lyrics and you see how fitting it is with what we've been discussing. And that's it. So till next time, take care of yourself. I really do hope you're feeling good wherever you are. This is Forrest Frank, No Longer Bound.
You can set us free. Take rest, cause the living God is living in my chest. Every day I wake up feeling blessed, and even if I don't, I see it as a test. Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do can separate my love from you. You came to set us free. You came to set us free.
Thankful you ain't drive me in that pit. Hey, nah. Saw my soul inside that famine, said that's it. Grace now. You never flake in the cold winter. I just came to borrow with the gold winners. Fast forward, turn to a road runner. Spirit caught me here, go get it. Shed blood, gave me lemonade on this cold bending. Pick me up. I was Timmy Turner, always chasing after Vicky. Took me to his spine and gave me peace and chose to cleanse me up. Now I'm testifying of your greatness. This a different look. Go, life been hitting hard, let's take it slow. Take a walk by the river and let you flow. Cause Lord, you are all I ever want. You're all I ever want. Cause I was lost until you found me. Now I know you're all around me. Nothing I could ever do